I post my car in my home. I'm leaving for a destination I still don't know. Somewhere nobody must have duties at all. And if you like this, you can follow me. So let's go. Follow me. And let's go to the place where we belong and leave our troubles at home. Come with me. We can go to a paradise of love and joy, a destination unknown.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways. And on we'll go.
Are clear. let you know. I'll count it down, then I'll start the intro.
I turned
We
it
need
off.
some music for an intro at some point.
Mm-hmm. All right, I am live and ready.
There we go. Get all this set up first.
Alrighty.
Three, two, one. Welcome back to another episode of the Double V Sports Talk with your host, Matthew, otherwise known as BuckHeels, and myself, Brian Bolsey. All right, coming to you live on Twitch, both on Bolsey's Twitch, BuckHeels Twitch. We're also on Facebook Live at Double V Sports Talk and on YouTube at Double V Sports Talk every Sunday morning at 11, coming with a abbreviated episode this morning. Only going to run an hour opposed to the 2 hours, so we're going to be moving rather quickly. Got a lot of good things to talk about, and we're going to start off. Matt, I'm going to ask you right now, the NBA draft was on Sunday night. Who won the NBA draft?
I think it was the Hornets. I really like. This is not trying to be biased. I just because I know we like to follow the Hornets, but I think it was really the Hornets. I'll just go down who they drafted. They drafted LaMelo Ball, and I think the biggest thing the Hornets need was someone for box office because when you look at Hornets team and NBA structure, you need those big names to bring people to watch the games. And I've heard a lot of people saying with the Hornets selected them, they really are going to start watching Hornets game. Going back down the list, Laverne Casey Jr. from Duke and Nick Richardson, both centers. They do need that true center. I feel like Zeller is more of a power forward, so I really like that. And then Grant Ritter from Charleston. He's just a pure shooter, pure talent, offensive weapon. I think they can move around. Maybe throw him in the shooting guard spot, or even put Ball down the shooting guard, and he'd be getting some good minutes off the bench. So I do like what they done. They attacked every single issue they needed going forward this season.
You know, I would agree. I think the Hornets did a phenomenal job, especially in free agency moving forward, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. You know, but when it comes to the draft, I think the Sacramento Kings, probably did the second best, I'll say, because, you know, I'm a big fan of what the Hornets did as well. But it's all because of one man. It's because of Tyrese Haliburton, all right? How that guy slipped all the way to 12, I don't know. I mean, I thought that guy was a top 5, top 6, top 7 guy. And I am absolutely stunned that he made it all the way down there. So now you're giving another weapon into that backcourt of the Kings. Now you have Buddy Hield, and then back there who can move around. So you have two guys that you're giving De'Aaron Fox the ability to come up the court and find. And I think that Haliburton can also do a really good job with the ball in his hands. He can do it as he's moving around off of screens. I think he's going to bring a lot to that Kings offense that has already stepped up and shown a lot in these recent years. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with them moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the first round here, second round, who do you think will be the first All-Star out of this draft?
It just matters. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think if it could be anyone, it might be Ball. Just because I was leaning to Anthony Edwards, but for how deep the Western Conference is, if Ball can, they can get him more a consecutive shot and shooter. I think he could. Just because how he can just put up points, but
I think that I can agree with you there for the most part. I think that he probably has the the best setup to do it. All right, and reason being is because um, the Hornets are a little bit weaker team, right? So you look at these other teams. The Timberwolves still have a lot of help around there with D'Angelo Russell and Towns, and there are other weapons on that team. Where the Hornets, you got Graham and you got Bridges. Now you have Gordon Hayward. So I think that there's more room for him to shine a little bit on this Hornets squad, elevating his numbers to a place that can allow him to be an All-Star first. But I'm going to go with Wiseman with the Warriors, and here's why, right? So you don't have Klay Thompson, right? So now you get Stephen Curry and a big man down there. Well, the big man's going to end up drawing in 1, 2, 3 defenders. He's got a friggin' 58-foot wingspan, and he's 116 feet tall. He's going to be a threat inside. All right, he brings what Shaq used to bring with the Magic and the Lakers of old, a huge athletic man that can run around, but here's the difference. He can shoot. Wiseman can shoot. He's basically a 4-inch, 30-pound heavier Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can expand out to a three-point game, that's going to be deadly. And that Warriors dynasty may not be as over the way we think it is. And I think because of that, I think he can stand out when it comes to centers in the West to be able to pull away and really try to steal some votes away from those other cats.
I like that. I like that. I was consider it, but the problem is for me, normally you only have 2 centers in this time that's going out, and I didn't really think he could beat Joker and Rudy Gobert. But I do like. Yeah, he does have it. He does have a chance, but if the I was just saying if the Warriors.
Anybody in this draft is an all-star as a rookie.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody in here that pulls that off. But you give it 3 years.
Yeah.
Those cats still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk a little bit about the NBA trades. Matt, you want to take that? Go for it.
Yeah. There was a couple big trades. I was wondering to ask you, how do you think, like with this trade with the Milwaukee trade, getting Drew Holiday and I can't think of the other kid's name. But do you think the Bucks now are going to be a contender with the moves they made?
They're already a contender.
Well, do they make them better though?
I think they do. But I mean, you're already looking at a very weak East. They should be the front runners. I don't know if Miami's bringing a lot of pieces back. They're a young, fiery team. We'll see if they can repeat. I mean, Jimmy Butler showed that he has MVP caliber ability there in the finals and there as a late run in the playoffs. Is that something he can consistently do in an 82-game season to be able to push them over? Now, granted, I know this year is going to be a little shorter. I know they're starting at the right there around Christmas, so it's not going to be a full season. But by the time you get into the season, you get into the playoffs, it's still going to be a grind, still going to be a stretch. And I still think the Bucks are probably the best team in the East right now. Even though they were exposed, it'll be interesting to see what the 76ers do. Do I think that they're an NBA championship team? No. But
I do. I did
still
like.
one of the most talented teams in the East.
I did think the Bucks got the best because they got Drew Holiday and Donovan Bogut, but it came out later that did you know Steven Adams was also in that trade package? It was like,
Yep.
And I really like what the Pelicans got with Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams. I think Steven Adams and Zion Williams will be a great, I think a front court. So, but I also think this does make the Bucks better but I don't see them at the time. I think they're the second best team. I still will take the Nets over them if this is the Nets' roster. There's still some moves that are potentially might be made, but I don't think this gets. It makes them better, but I don't see them getting over the Nets with this team.
I mean, and that's going to be the thing. And so the Nets are still untested right now, right? We still don't know what they're going to be, who they're going to be, and how this Kyrie Irving KD matchup meshes. And I know Harden has a lot of faith in it, trying to find a way to finagle his way in there, but it's still untested. We'll see. I mean, KD is still, I would almost guarantee, one of the best players in the world, regardless of this Achilles injury. I mean, we saw what Kobe did coming back off of it, and we'll see what Klay Thompson does coming back off of it. So, they have the talent, but they're untested. And so we'll see what the Nets – I can't call the Nets the best team in the East right now because I haven't seen it. We haven't seen what those two do on the floor together. And it's not like Kyrie played a whole lot of games with the Nets. He still missed a lot. So what ends up happening with that, we'll end up seeing. Let's keep rolling along here. Let's get to a little bit of a couple of games that happened yesterday. We had the Indiana going into Columbus there to take on Ohio State, and what I thought was going to be a blowout, what started off as a blowout, turned into a really close, really tight game there with Indiana. And so, Matt, let me ask you this. Was that because of Indiana's ability to shut down this Ohio State offense and then put points on a very good defense, or was that Ohio State just stopped playing and overestimating a very good Indiana team along with bad play from Justin Fields?
I think it was just overestimating a little bit after getting ahead. And I think it was also I don't want to take away from Indiana. Indiana's defense kind of started locking down and forcing Fields to make bad decisions. I think there was a one play for Fields. He held the ball on for 7 seconds and they couldn't get the ball open. I'm like, you're not right there. I'm not blaming Fields. I'm blaming the Ohio State receivers, and that's just the Indiana secondary playing really good man coverage against them. So I'm not going to take away from Indiana. I think it was more Indiana's defense gave Fields and this Ohio State offense a test.
Yeah. Do you we're talking about this same deal. We also had Nebraska on a amazing win there against Wisconsin. Let me ask you this: who do you think? All right, with I think we can both agree that out of the East, Ohio State's coming out, right? Between Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, Rutgers, all that. Ohio State's going to be coming out of the East, right? Mm-hmm. Well, is Northwestern the team that comes out of the West now? Because if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I thought we're having a Wisconsin and Ohio State Big Ten matchup. But I know Purdue's not, Illinois is not, Iowa's not, Nebraska's not, Minnesota most likely not. And so I think we're going to have a Northwestern Ohio State Big Ten championship. Is Ohio State going to win another Big Ten championship? Is that what I was looking at? Or does Northwestern have a chance?
I mean, every team has a chance. You don't want to say they don't. You're playing one game. So we've seen like Indiana almost pulling it out, have an opportunity to beat Ohio State. So in the best of one game, everyone has a chance. But I do still like Wisconsin. I think still has the better opportunity to take Ohio State. But like you said, Northwestern is in that driver's seat to win the West, and they just have to win out. So they do have a chance, but I think Wisconsin does have the better team, and they can match up better with Ohio State, though.
Agreed. So let's move on. Next week, this coming week on Friday, we have number 2 Notre Dame going into Chapel Hill. And on paper, everybody's saying it's going to be an easy win for Notre Dame and whatnot. Is this a trap game for Notre Dame? Is this a game that they may overlook and give a very good Chapel Hill team a big upset inside Keenan Memorial Stadium?
I definitely think it is. Carolina is under the radar a little. I still don't think they're getting being looked at seriously by a lot of teams just because how Northern Dane and Clemson's up there, and then everyone's talking about Miami and King. So I do think this Sam Howell, I think, is going to be a top prospect next year. You'll hear a lot about him coming into his junior year. Um, the biggest thing for me for this game would be Northern Dane's defense. We know they have a really good defense. They're top one of the top defense in the NCAA. Can can North Carolina find a way to shred this defense and be able to put points up against this Northern Dane team? That's what I see would be the biggest thing.
We saw last week against Wake Forest that Carolina can put up some points.
Mm-hmm.
They can score. And, I do think that a very good Carolina team is being overlooked by a very bad loss to Florida State when they had chances to win it and ended up having 3 incomplete balls in a row that were hit in the hands. Should have won that game. And then a battle against Virginia that also could have gone, that they could have taken. You take those 2 losses away, and we're talking about a different ranking Chapel Hill team in here in the mix for an ACC championship. But I think Notre Dame knows that. I do. I really think they understand what's going on. I think this Notre Dame offense can take advantage of a weak Chapel Hill defense. We've seen that the Chapel Hill strength, the Carolina strength, has been from their offense and their ability to score points. But we also saw that defense give up 53 points to Wake Forest. Now, don't get me wrong, Wake Forest is a very good team with an explosive offense, but you cannot give up 53 points to Notre Dame and expect to even be close to the game. Mm-hmm. I think if they're going to win this game, Sam Howell and that offense have to match Notre Dame point for point for point. And you've got to turn it into a shootout. I think if you turn this into a shootout with Notre Dame, that's how you beat them. If this is a long grind, it's gonna be a hard day for Carolina to be able to pull this out because they've also shown the Wake Forest was the first time that they really had a grind of a game where they showed that they could win it, other than Virginia Tech where they almost blew a friggin' 30-point lead. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see there. And then we also have the Iron Bowl. A little weird to have the Iron Bowl before Thanksgiving, but Auburn has battled back.
I think this should be a Thanksgiving Day game for.
That'd be great, right? So let me ask you this, right? Alabama is clearly the better team right now. Mm-hmm. Clearly, all right. Auburn's having a down year, but at the same time, like you said before, you can never count anybody out. And at the end of the day, this is the Iron Bowl. So Auburn's going to be coming with a fire ready to play, but they are going to Tuscaloosa. What's going to happen with this game? Go ahead, give me your prediction here.
Before I go into that, I want to add on to that. Last time I was hearing them talking about it. Mac Jones actually right now leads the Heisman vote because how dominant it was at 2,400 yards, 18 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. And they're talking about. I think this would be.
Short scrap. You know who I think needs to be leading that, but
yeah. But going back for. Always like this matchup, whenever these 2 teams play, you can throw everything out of the books because when these 2 teams play, it's physical. It's gonna be physical, and it's never count out the other team at the last second. I'm always just thinking I can't remember what it was that missed field goal returned for was it 104 yards. That's just stuck in my head.
Because of that game, every team in America now practices that. We practiced it in high school back there at South Colorado High School under Butch Carter. We used to practice that, but now they have a name for it. Anytime you practice, right, covering a kick, a field goal, it's called Auburn. All right, let's go run Auburn. And it's because of that game right there. And I agree with you. I think when it comes down to the end of the day, it's the Iron Bowl. You throw everything out the window. Anything's open. I think Alabama clearly has the better team, but maybe this is Bo Nix's time. Maybe it is. That dude has shown that he can be special. He makes some really dumb mistakes sometimes, especially when Auburn can't run the ball and you're putting everything on his shoulders. That's not who he is. But maybe he's got a little bit to him, and they're able to find it. I know they're going to be juiced up. I know they're going to be fired up, but and so is Alabama. I mean, Alabama hasn't been able to play in 2-3 weeks now, so they're itching to get back on the field too. And Auburn struggled there early against Tennessee, going into halftime 10-10 before putting up 20 points in the second half. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what the paper shows. Although,
I do like to say, you said, I think did you say Alabama had a bye week?
No, they had the COVID deal.
Well, if you want to, I was just gonna say, if you want to count the Kentucky loss 63-3 a bye week, then yeah, they did kind of have one.
They missed 2 weeks before that because of COVID. But yeah, they basically had a bye week. I mean, they showed up, took a nap, and ended up rolling 63-3. So it was basically a bye week. Might as well have been.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into another game in the SEC coming up. You got Georgia, all right, going into South Carolina. Now, clearly, neither one of these teams are having the season that they expected, right? Neither one of them is doing the things they did. Mississippi State's a very good team, but I think the talent Georgia has, they should have handled them a lot better than they did last night. That was a very close game. Mike Leach has done a phenomenal job with Mississippi State. I mean, they played that game with 50 scholarships. 50 scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
50! They almost beat Georgia. And JT Daniels finally getting the start. Been waiting for that. And is he their guy? Possibly. I mean, he showed some really good things, but I just can't help but thinking they could have Justin Fields as their starting quarterback right now.
Yep. And I think and how this defense is, if they had Justin Fields, this is a team that would be contending for a national championship right now with this defense, how they're playing this year. But
no, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see moving forward what JT Daniels is able to do with that team and how they're able to go with the rest of the season. But who's a name to keep an eye on? I'm going to give you a name right here. Jermaine Burton. All right? That freshman wide receiver has shown up week after week after week after week as a dude. All right? He's listed as 6 foot. Right? Ain't no way he's 6 foot. If they put that 6 foot, he's probably 5'10", 5'11", but he doesn't even have he's fast. Don't get me wrong, he's quick. But he ain't Tyreek Hill fast. Right? He's not just an absolute burner, but he is a phenomenal route runner. He is great in and out of his breaks. He finds a way to get open, and then most importantly, when they throw the ball his direction, he catches it.
mm-hmm.
Right? That kid is special. I think that another year with JT Daniels at the helm, if they're not able to find a better freshman quarterback, that could be a really big combination. But it's just not their year right now. And we'll see what ends up happening. And then getting into South Carolina, my boy Luke Doty out of Myrtle Beach High School ended up getting in the game, had a chance for a game-winning drive. Could have been, or a game-tying drive. Could have been just an absolute storybook ending for the true freshman coming in. Supposed to be a little package guy, ends up getting in there, working it down the field, and then just throws a pick at the end. But I was pulling for that kid to be able to go out and do something special after watching him play throughout high school. And he's still got a lot of time. I think he's a young, talented quarterback, and we'll see if he's the future face of that South Carolina offense. But we can't talk about South Carolina without talking about Muschamp. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That dude's now going to get paid $14 million over the next 4 years to sit on his rear end. Not too bad. But with that being open, all right, now what is your top candidates moving forward into this South Carolina job?
Now, I told you before we went live that you might like who I'm picking.
I'm taking a guess you're going to say Jamie Chadwell.
I am. I'm picking Chadwell, former North Greenville head coach too. I think he's done a fantastic job with Coastal Carolina, and I do think a big school like South Carolina will be knocking at his door. And it's very hard to pass up taking a coaching a team in the SEC. So
And I agree, right? To an extent, if South Carolina comes knocking at Jamie Chadwell's door, you're a fool for not taking the job. He's taking it in a heartbeat. And the thing with that I love about Jamie Chadwell is that staff that he has there at Coastal Carolina is very similar to the staff that he had at North Greenville back in 2012, right? So he left North Greenville, went to Delta State. After Delta State, went to Chuck South. After Chuck South, then up going to Coastal Carolina. If you don't know Jamie Chadwell, the dude wins. He has won for the last decade at every single stop he's been to. He has Coastal Carolina rolling. I mentioned on our very first episode here, keep an eye on Coastal Carolina. The very next week, they beat Georgia State 52-0. Georgia State's a good football team on offense, at least. They struggle a little bit on defense, but their offense is phenomenal what Brad Glenn has doing with them. He held them to 0. I've seen Brad Glenn get shut out one time, and that was at Western Carolina against Chattanooga in the negative 58,000-degree weather when they were playing for a conference championship. But here's my thing. If you're South Carolina, right, you just spent all this money on Will Muschamp, and it was a quote-unquote bust, right? I think you got to make a splash. I hear a lot of talk about Billy Napier and Jamie Chadwell. Hugh Freeze has been thrown out there. Here's my thing, right? Can you look your South Carolina boosters in the eye and say, I'm taking a cat from the Sun Belt to go win an SEC championship with? At least Hugh Freeze has some SEC experience, right? I don't know. Billy Napier has some SEC experience, but not as a head coach and not as a significant role in the coaching staff. Hugh Freeze does, and honestly, if he didn't get caught cheating in recruiting, he'd still be at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something else you can do? Here's my name, right? If I'm South Carolina, I'm going to Tony Elliott, and I'm going to make Tony Elliott tell me no. Because here's the thing, right? Not only, right, Tony Elliott, he may be a Clemson guy through and through. But at the end of the day, can you, even being a Clemson guy to the core, that dude bleeds orange and purple, can you turn down a head job in the SEC? I don't think so, right? And on top of that, not only are you getting a phenomenal coach, right, that essentially, like if you ask me, Tony Elliott's the reason Jeff Scott got that job at South Florida. And South Carolina better be thankful that they didn't end up firing Muschamp last year, because then Jeff Scott would be in the mix, and we've seen what he's done at South Florida. And been good. All right, but Tony Elliott, not only do you get a phenomenal coach, you shake up your rival. You take away a key cornerstone in Dabo Swinney's offense. You take away a key component in your rival's offense. And then, if there is anybody that can steal recruits in South Carolina away from Clemson, it's Tony Elliott. That dude can recruit his nuts off like nobody's business. You want to try to have the best recruiting class in South Carolina over and over and over again, you get Tony Elliott to your team. Because Muschamp did a great job recruiting. They've got a lot of young talent there.
Mm-hmm.
They also took some questionable guys. Tony Elliott's my guy. I make him tell me no before I go ask anybody else.
I mean, he's going to be a top candidate. Even in NFL, he might be pulling as offense coordinator, even or looked at a head coach job too. So he's going to be candidate in NFL also.
Absolutely. That dude's special. Does a lot of great things. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Let's move on to the NFL. We know we had a great game on Thursday night there with Mighty Mouse leading the Cardinals and Russell Wilson there with the Seahawks. What a game that was. It was a grind and a battle. A lot of fun to watch. Matt, what were your thoughts, takeaways on that game?
I thought, like I said, it was a good game. What came down to me, I was the struggle by the Cardinals running attack. They couldn't run the ball. I think if I remember 50, they rushed barely over 50 yards. And every time I was watching it, the Cardinals just couldn't get the ball moving. They couldn't get going. I think they went 5 straight possessions with punting the ball, almost a 6 until Seattle had 2 dumb 15-yard penalties. I know one with Bobby Wagner coming down with a horse collar tackle. Sorry. But I think it was more a clean game by Wilson. Wilson played a clean game, going 23 for 28. And I just liked. I think the biggest person, Carlos Hyde, was the biggest impact player. Him coming back this week helped Russell Wilson kind of calm down, and I kind of had. I knew with hearing that Hyde coming back was going to help Russell because it took that pressure a little bit of that pressure off of him, having that running game back.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a reason why Russell Wilson is a MVP candidate right now, and it's because that dude has been playing lights out, even with a very struggling defense. But, I'm going to give some shout-outs to the Seahawks defense.
Mm-hmm.
They held DeAndre Hopkins to 5 catches and 51 yards and no touchdowns. I mean, watching that game, I thought of, when I was watching it, somewhere around the third quarter, I was like, where's D-Hop been? I think I remember him making 1 catch. And if you take that man out of the game and you're forcing an 85-year-old Larry Fitzgerald to have to run down the field and be your playmaker, you're asking for a world of hurt for Kyler Murray. So, I think they did a really good job there. And then when you hold Kenyon Drake to 2.6 yards a carry, you got a really good chance of doing something special. So, I think that was, like I said, I give my shout out to the Seahawks defense. But
I do say this.
Let's talk about what's going on.
I was just going to say, I do think this is a great step for Seattle, especially if this is. I can't wait to see next week to see if this defense continues to be continues, because if this defense can start clicking, this Seattle team is going to be very scary moving forward.
Agreed. So let's go ahead and go into games that are going on today. We got the 3-6 Falcons, who have been playing a little bit better here of late, going against the 7-2 Saints, with the first time without Drew Brees. So Matt, what do the Saints look like without Drew Brees today?
My confidence level has kind of. I was hearing words. I thought Jameis Winston would be starting. I think Jameis Winston should be starting, but apparently Sean Payton has decided to go with Tyson Hill. Apparently there's rumors that a lot of Saints in the Saints organization does not agree with Sean Payton. So this offense, I feel like it's going to be more kind of like it's going to be around Camaro. They're going to definitely try to get him the ball as much as possible. You probably go see a lot of trickery plays using Tyson Hill and some options, read options, stuff like that. But I think it's going to be more, they're going to try to control the time of possession and a lot of dunking the ball off, not trying to, because I don't know how good he'll be able to throw. I think he maybe has 20 completions or 20 attempts all in his NFL career. I don't see them. This offense looking good if they get slightly behind and needing Tyson Hill to throw at least 40 attempts. So I don't know. It's very surprising. If Winston was playing, I could see how this offense could move, but with Tyson Hill, I don't know how they're going to attack. The only thing is they're going to try to run the ball on Falcons.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that you got to take advantage of Alvin Kamara. I think you got to be able to utilize him, but you got to take advantage of the fact that you have 2 big-time dudes able to run there in the backfield, and need to be able to. You got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to run the ball against Atlanta. They have the second worst rush defense in the league. Second worst, right? They are terrible at stopping the run. You have to be able to run to them, and you have to trust your defense to be able to shut down a very, very good Atlanta passing attack. If you cannot shut down Atlanta's passing attack and you force Tatum Hill to have to be able to throw the ball late in the game consistently, you're going to struggle for New Orleans. But, if New Orleans can dominate the run, they got to get a lead early. They got to be able to keep that lead and trust their defense. They don't need to score 30 points here, right? But they need to be able to hold Atlanta under 20. If you hold Atlanta under 20, I think that offense, even without Drew Brees, can do enough to be able to take the lead, hold the lead, and grind this game out. But they have to win time of possession, and they have to win on the ground.
I got a
So,
question for you, Brian,
but
real quick before we move on. Do you like the decision with Taysom Hill, or did you prefer Jameis Winston be starting today?
you know, I trust Sean Payton. I think he's one of the best in the game, especially when it comes to quarterback coach. I'm going to trust his ability for Tatum Hill. I know that guy can process. He can think. He's been in that offense for a long time. And the reason I know he can process and think because he's played 57 positions on that team. Right? He's done it all. He's been there on the punt team. He's been as a receiver. He's been as a tight end. He's been as a fullback, as a running back, as a quarterback, as a second quarterback. He's been on kickoff. He's been on kickoff return. The dude can think. He can process. I trust his ability to be able to execute this offense. Obviously, the question is, can he sling it consistently and make good decisions in that regard? But you know he can run the ball. You know he can do all this. Otherwise, the other side of things is that you have Jameis Winston, led the league in interceptions by a ton. All right? I mean, the dude threw 30 picks. Can you trust him? He's only been in this offense for 5 or 6 months. Now, don't get me wrong. Sean Payton is a wizard on offense. And granted, all he has to do is just throw little 4-yard completions to Alvin Kamara. But you trust Jameis Winston throwing those deep bombs to Michael Thomas. I don't know if you trust Tatum Hill to do it. But at the same time, at least maybe. I think that we're going to see both. I really think that we're going to see both games coming back around and both guys coming around. And I think it's going to be a good game. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. And so we'll see what ends up happening.
Before we move on. I do agree that you'll see, I think James Winston, because they don't want to take Taysom Hill out of receiving and running the ball and running some of those plays they like to use them. So I do agree with that.
You'll see both at the end of the day, and it'll be an interesting game. I think we're going to see a different Saints offense that we've experienced in the Drew Brees era in the last 15 years. So it'll be fun to see. Let's go on to the next game. We got the Detroit Lions, right, going into Carolina. It is, we've seen a very struggling Detroit team turn around of late. We also saw a Panthers team that started off doing pretty well, have a couple tight games, and then end up giving 200-yard plus rushing to the Bucs, 300-yard plus passing to Tom Brady. They couldn't friggin' touch him. I think they ended up getting 1-2 sacks. They gave him all day in the backfield. That Panthers defense looked terrible. And on top of that, right, is Teddy Bridgewater playing in this game?
Good question, because I just seen Adam Schefter just tweeted out 4 minutes ago. Teddy Bridgewater is active today. So.
All right, but what is he able to do? And so that's my other question right now. Here's the benefit that the Panthers have. Okay, they still have a young defense that runs around. They can't stop the run to save their life, but luckily, Detroit hasn't been able to run the ball very well. This new kid that they have back there has done well the last couple weeks, but at the same time, that's not what they do. They trust Matthew Stafford to get back there and sling the ball, and he's done a good job at it. But can you take advantage? Right. So here's the question: can they take advantage of a weak Lions secondary? The Panthers can sling it when everybody's healthy and back there. The combination we've talked about it week after week between Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore is explosive. Right, for a couple weeks straight, they were the number one duo in the league when it came to receiving yards. Robbie Anderson has been a phenomenal addition to the Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey's still out, right?
Yes.
So you're gonna have to rely on Mac Davis grinding and pounding, which he wasn't able to do against the Bucs. But I think it's going to end up coming down to Teddy Bridgewater's play. The thing that's been interesting with Teddy Bridgewater is he's literally bounced back and forth every single week, right? Good game, bad game, good game, bad game, good game, bad game. And we're talking about, throwing a pick every other week. Going over 100 passer rating every other week. Well, luckily, he really sucked it up last week, so maybe this is the week that he ends up coming back and doing something special. And I don't think the Panthers need to be great on defense to win this game, but they have to put some pressure on Matthew Stafford. They have to up front. If they don't do that, and they have to be able to stop the run, at least slow it down. Because I don't think this Panthers offense can keep up if the Lions start getting up into the 30, 40 points.
Well, they need another threat. Brian Burns can't be the only only person that can pressure the quarterback. They need some more help of someone being able to get off the other side of the edge to get that pressure.
I mean, the cat from Penn State just hasn't really. You can see why he was a second-round pick, and Derek Brown and Brian Burns were first-round picks. But at the same time, he's got some talent. We'll have to see what ends up happening there. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we need to see more out of Derek Brown in the overall. He made some plays early on, but as the season's gone on, he's kind of just faded into the abyss. I haven't really seen him do much in the pass game. His strengths were in the run game, but at the same time, there were times against Tampa Bay where they were literally just running right by him, just staring off, and it was. I need more out of Derek Brown. You can't be the 7th overall pick in the draft and show up for the first 4 weeks, and then just disappear. He had a decent game against Kansas City, but they're going to need more out of him in the middle of that defense, where the defense is already struggling. And so we'll see what ends up happening there.
I do say this: it is a key when you're hearing about Jeremy Chin being more of an impact player than Derek Brown, who they took Jeremy in the second round compared to being a 7th pick.
Jeremy Chin's a great player.
Yeah.
The thing that makes him useful to them is the fact that he can play multiple positions. I mean, he is the true definition of a drop-down safety linebacker. Right? So, I mean, you can trust him to end up playing safety linebacker. You can put him out in the slot. You can put him in man coverage. You can drop him in the box to help with the run game. He was obviously hurt there for a little bit. I don't think he had that great of a game before, but it'd be interesting to see what ends up happening. Can they slow down Matthew Stafford by getting pressure on him? We shall see. So let's go on. We got the 6-3 Tennessee Titans going into the 6-3 Baltimore Ravens, both of them coming off of some key losses there. You got the number 2 rushing attack in Baltimore, number 1 in point differential there with the Ravens, going against the heavy running attack of Tennessee. What do you see happening in this game? What needs to happen?
Before I get into it, there's some more breaking news with Teddy Bridgewater. They said after saying Teddy would be active, the Panthers have decided to deactivate him, and P.J. Walker will start for the Panthers today. So, just coming out just now, by the way.
I really hope that P.J. Walker is the better quarterback here, and it's just not some tempo bias. Because, I think Zach Greer did a phenomenal job in college, and we didn't get to see a whole lot of them there. Ron Rivera's last little stint there with Carolina. Maybe we'll see him at some point, but I hope P.J. Walker is legit. He had a good season there in the XFL before they ended up closing down. I don't think he did all that great last week when he was in there, but we shall see. Hopefully he can do a lot of the stuff that needs to happen. But let's continue on with what are your thoughts on the Tennessee-Baltimore game?
I think I called it last week. I don't know if you remember it. I called it. I was like, if the Patriots have a chance, it's because there's some turmoil in the Ravens-Baltimore locker room. We still don't know. The Ravens got beat by the Ravens' way. They got dominated on the ground, and they couldn't run the ball. But I just think this is a bounce-back game for the Ravens. Just because this Tennessee Titans team, defensively, they don't look like the team we seen last year. Clowney was just added to the IR yesterday. But I think with this Tennessee defense struggling, I think this is a bounce back of Ravens getting back to running the ball. I think they can be able to attack this Titans team that hasn't been able to put pressure on quarterbacks, and they struggle to get off the field. Because that Colts game last week, the biggest thing that I've seen was the Colts taking long drives and able to move down the field, taking time off of them. So I think For me, that's gonna be the biggest thing.
I think that Ryan Tannehill is not a bad quarterback, even when he was there in Miami. But the reason that he's not in Miami anymore is because he's not that take over a game kind of guy. And if you're not able to run the ball the way you need to, they're not going to win. They're not going to be very effective. And so that's where I think the issue comes in is, can they run the ball against a very stout Baltimore defense that struggled last week in the rain? And that's been their strong suit all year long, is being able to stop, or is being able to give their offense a chance because they've run the ball really well. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I think Baltimore has to run the ball to stand a chance. Well, I think it's going to be whoever wins the running game in this game is going to be take it over. But I think Lamar Jackson's a little fired up, and I think he's going to come out firing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Let's talk a little bit about the Dolphins and Broncos. The Broncos have shown some explosiveness there. The receiving core, Drew Lock has really struggled of late. Especially, Drew Lock is having the opposite season of Tua in Miami here. So what do you?
I don't think Drew Lock is playing today either. Anyway, or is he?
Who's starting then?
I'm trying to see if they update. Last I heard, he's been banged up with some ribs injury.
Yep.
So I don't know if he's starting or not. I don't know who is going to be starter.
Not even that.
But I focus more. I'll just focus more on the Dolphins because I think this is more about the Miami Dolphins. This is their game to win, more than Denver taking over this game. It's more of this offense. I think until the more we see Tua, the more questions we want to say. He is 3-0? Can he continue to develop? As we've seen week after week, his offensive role is increasing, and he hasn't shined from it. He's been improving, and I'm just continuing excited and wanting to see how he does and see him because this team is very scary with this defense, and this offense starts clicking, and we can see Tua being able to take this offense because I want to see him against. They did take out some good teams, but I want to see him against one of like that Chiefs. I want to see the Miami Chiefs game. That's when we'll start seeing, can this offense, is this offense and this team legit?
No, and I agree, but let me bring up the Broncos one more time. I don't think the Broncos are as bad as they're being given credit for.
Yeah,
and
I will say that I do agree with that.
Close game. They've had a lot of really close games. They've really battled, even without Von Miller. That defense has still been extremely stout. They've done a lot of good things. They've been exposed without not having much of a pass rush or as much of a pass rush, but I think they've done a lot of good things. My question is, what are they going to do on offense, right? And here's the problem: is you have a struggling offense going against one of the best defenses in Miami. Miami can take the ball away. That's what they do. They take the ball away, and they make you pay for it. So whoever ends up starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos today has to protect the ball. And how do you protect the ball? You run it. You got to run the ball. And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening in that game. Like I said, I think the Broncos are a much better team than what's shown on paper. Obviously, between what's going on with the Chiefs and the Raiders, there's no way they're going to have a chance at the division. Most likely, the odd chance they're going to be able to come out into the playoffs. I think their hopes on this season at this point in time are just developing and trying to get better to prepare for next season. But there's a lot of promise there. There's still a lot of talent on that team that was in the Super Bowl not too long ago, and I think that they have the ability to do something, but they got to find a quarterback. Drew Lock is not the dude. He is not the guy. They got to get a quarterback some way, shape, or form. And the problem is this next draft class is not a very strong quarterback draft, right? Other than Trevor Lawrence, I don't see anybody coming out that you're just like, this is a guy that can turn around my franchise. And so that means you probably have to attack free agency or go down another path to be able to try to pull something out. And so one of the things that I've heard here recently is, what if, right? Who becomes available if moving forward with what's going on, right? If the Jets end up getting the number 1 overall pick and they end up taking Trevor Lawrence, what do you do with Sam Darnold? Because I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback.
I think it's a bad situation with the bad coach.
I think it's a terrible situation. So do you go after somebody like Sam Darnold, right? We already saw what happened when they had Joe Flacco, so you don't go down that route again. And so is that something you try to take advantage of? Is there somebody else out there? What about Tyrod Taylor? Right, he lost a starting job there in I was about to say San Diego, in LA with the Chargers. Is he a viable option? So I think you got to go out and find somebody else. You don't need a superstar, but you need somebody that can manage the game better than Drew Lock can, because that dude has some talent, but I haven't seen, like, he sits back in the pocket, he passes the ball, he's got too much going on up here. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he ends up developing into a guy that can do something. But as of right now, I haven't seen it. Yeah. We got to keep on moving. We're falling behind a little bit. Let's get into probably my favorite matchup of the week. You have the 7-2 Packers going into the 6-3 Indianapolis Colts. All right, you have probably the best defense going against the best offense, right? In the Packers offense and the Colts defense. But then you also get a very mediocre Indianapolis offense going against a very mediocre Packers defense. So how does this game match up? What are your thoughts?
I know we'll get in our picks in a bit. This was probably my hardest one. This matchup is great defensively and offensively. I can't wait to see it. Packers, I don't know if you know, this will be the first game this season where the Packers have all their offensive weapons. So I'm very excited to see that. And I think this game comes down to the Colts offense. Even though they beat Tennessee, they've still kind of struggled with Rivers. This offense is very inconsistent. Although Green Bay doesn't have the best defense, I'm looking to see, can the Colts be able to put up points, because we know the Packers and Aaron Rodgers will be able to, even though going against tough defense, they'll be able to move the ball. But the thing is, for me too, if Green Bay, can they take their advantages? And I mean against this defense, because this defense won't give them much, but can they be able to take their advantages against this strong defense?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening there. Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it. Even against as stout of a defense as the Colts are. I mean, they are by far the best defense in the league. They're playing like it. My question is, what is Phillip Rivers and that offense going to do? They were able to kind of start messing around a little bit with the run game last week and did some really good things there. But you've got to give Phillip Rivers time. And then B, they've got to be able to get a lot of yak. All right? Phillip Rivers isn't one that's taking shots downfield. Right? I think he leads the league in passes under 5 yards. He's just dumping the ball off and letting dudes do them. Right? So he's got to be able to – the playmakers got to be able to make plays. It's that simple. And that's what it comes down to 9 times out of 10 anyway. Playmakers make plays. I think that's what the difference is going to be. And I think the Colts defense – I'm going to throw this out here right now. The Colts defense need to hold the Packers under 30. And it probably needs to be less than that. But if you hold the Packers under 30, you stand a chance of being able to really be competitive in this game. And
turn the ball over. I think they need to also be able to get 1 or 2 turnovers.
Gotta get takeaways.
Yep.
Gotta get takeaways. All right, so let's go into Kansas City, who is sitting right now at 8-1. With their one loss of the year coming against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now they're going to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. You also have Patrick Mahomes, who has thrown 1 pick all year and is on pace to have the best touchdown-to-interception ratio of all time, with that 1 pick also coming in this game where he tried sliding one in there to the post and split safeties, ended up seeing it, being able to come back across, making the play there and 3-by-1. Kansas City obviously has one of the best passing attacks in the league. You also have Las Vegas with one of the best rushing attacks in the league. Kansas City has been extremely well on defense, except for teams that run the ball heavily on them. And now you get Raiders defense has been playing well, a Raiders offense that has been running the ball really well and allowing Derek Carr to be more of a game manager opposed to a superstar. Do you think that we're going to see a repeat from earlier in the season?
I don't think so. The biggest thing I've been hearing about this game, the Chiefs are going to come in here with a chip on their shoulder, upset, pissed off, because I don't know if you've heard about this coming week. After their loss, the Raiders drove their bus around the stadium like a victory lap after they beat the Chiefs at Kansas City. So this is a big rival game, and I think the Chiefs will come in here. I think Andy Reid's going to use that as motivation, although I don't think they'll need it. But I don't think the Raiders will come out with the offensive scheme, just kind of a little like what they did the first time they've met. But I think the Chiefs will have more control of this game. This game kind of got out a little out of hands, more of kind of like a shootout. And the Kansas City Chiefs, surprisingly, doesn't want to get in a shootout. They want to control the ball. They want to control the pace. And I think the Chiefs will take a grip of this game and see what they've done and just kind of slow down the game and make it not a back and forth shootout.
Yeah, no. See, I think it's going to be a slow line. I think for the Raiders to stand a chance, it's got to be a slow grind. I think you have to be able to control the clock, run the ball, and be able to limit the amount of times you put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. Because if that guy's on the field, magic is happening. Mm-hmm. Right? He's been absolutely electric. He's having another Super Bowl caliber season with a Super Bowl caliber team around him. And so Kansas City was struggling to run the ball. So what they do? They went out and got Le'Veon Bell. Now, we'll see what ends up happening. The Raiders have been playing extremely well on defense here of late. But, you know,
I do say this. I looked it up to see the
Andy
possession.
Reid is also special.
The Raiders won the possession 35 to 24 minutes. So, like I said, that was a big key for the Raiders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they can do that again, they'll have a chance of repeating and spoiling Kansas City's celebration party going back from LA. So then that's so I'm looking forward to that matchup tonight. That'll be a good game. But you know, the other game I'm really looking forward to is tomorrow night. You have the LA Rams going into the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Tampa Bay Bucks are coming off of an explosive game against a very struggling Carolina Panthers. And, you know, the one thing that Tom Brady has struggled with this season is when he's got pressure up in his face. Well, guess what? He's going against Aaron Donald, the number 2 sack leader in the league right now, going against one of the most stout defenses outside the Colts. I think they're the second best defense in the league outside the Colts. Going against who I would consider being the third best defense in the league, the Tampa Bay. So this is definitely a game of extremely stout defenses. I think that if you force Tom Brady to have to sit back there and throw deep balls, then the Rams are going to be able to stand a chance. But how do you do that? You have to, once again, stop the run. You've got to, if the Bucs want to run it on first down, you've got to shut them down, right, and get a second and long situation. You get into a second and long situation, once again, you got to shut them down again. You got to keep Tom Brady away from being able to make his patented Tom Brady quick slants, quick outs, being able to catch and throw. You got to limit all that. So you force Tom Brady to have to sit back in the pocket and allow Aaron Donald and that defensive front to get pressure on him. Because when has he really struggled? When he's been getting beat up and banged around. And that comes down to the secondary within the Rams that are playing extremely solid. They've done a lot of great things. The thing that Tampa Bay has done a really good job on defense is be able to stop the run. They have been able to shut down the run like nobody's business. And Ryan Goff take advantage of that and be able to throw the ball around a little bit.
I'll just say this before we move on to our picks. For Tampa Bay, they have all these weapons. They have Jalen Ramsey on the other side. They have a very good secondary, but they can't cover all these weapons. They're going to be mismatches. They need to take advantage of those mismatches today. And I know if anyone that can, it'll be Tom. So what starts that? They need to get Rode Jones and get him started, and he needs to be 20 to 30 touches today for them to be successful to keep that defense being able to just pin their ears back and go after Brady.
So let me ask you this before we get into our picks for this week. Right now, you have the Seahawks sitting at 7-3, the Cardinals sitting at 6-4. You have the Rams at 6-3, right? So a very tight division going on. Who do you see coming out of the NFC West?
I got the Seahawks. After seeing Thursday night game, we know with this offense, with them, the running backs with Hyde and Carson supposed to come back later this year. This running game getting back to without putting the pressure, and this defense starting to come form. I think Seattle.
Okay, and then if we look at the NFC South, right now you have the 7-2 Saints that beat the Bucs twice, but are now without Drew Brees. Who do you see coming out of the NFC South? Because it's not going to be the Panthers or the Falcons.
I would have said the Saints before Breeze had those fractured ribs and punctured lungs, but now I can see the Bucs be able to take
Let
this
me ask
division.
you this then. On top of that, if you're the Saints and you find out that Drew Brees he can come back, right, at a reasonable time, do you bring him back there around Christmas, New Year's, or do you just wait until the playoffs start before you really force the man to have to try to play with all that?
If they're
I shouldn't say
playoff,
force. That man's going to play when he can.
if they can wait for the playoffs, wait for the playoffs. Obviously, if it's near the end, he's able to come back, and they are somehow this team falling off, and their playoff hopes are on the fate. You bring them back, but if you can, maybe the last game you throw him in for a couple of drives just to get him that feel for he's missed for a couple of weeks. But I think for especially these 11 fractured ribs, you have to try to let him sit, especially for him being 41-year-old. Get him wait for the playoffs.
No, I would agree with that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our picks for today. Matt, the Atlanta Falcons going into New Orleans. Who do you have?
I got the Atlanta Falcons. I don't trust the Taysom Hill.
You know, I'm going to say the same thing. I think that Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense have been explosive with Riley and Jones back there. Even though New Orleans has done a phenomenal job, I think that the Falcons are just going to try to sling it around a little bit, not rely on Todd Gurley, who's been struggling of late. And if they can get this into a shootout, which I think that they're going to try to, then I think they have a really good chance of beating the Saints. Let's go to Detroit in Charlotte.
I think the Panthers. This is not a Detroit team that Carolina has faced multiple MVPs. This is a game that Carolina will look at and say, hey, we come out and play like minus the second half of Tampa. If they come out like the last couple of 5 games even, and come out and play their game, they can easily win this one, even with PJ.
You know, I want to say the Panthers, but I just don't think that I can trust that Panthers offense right now. I don't know if they can get the ball out there. Line's been hot of late. And I can't trust the Panthers defense. And if I can't trust your defense, I can't trust your offense, who am I relying on? You know, maybe Matt Rule will go out there and just work some magic. And, you know, us being from the Carolinas, we're huge Panther fans and been watching them all of our life. And I'll take the Panthers to win. Any day of the week, I'll be a victory. So I'm going to say the Detroit Lions, but if I'm wrong, I'll be okay with my life.
Yeah.
Now, you have the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers going into the 1-8 Jaguars. Is this the chance for the Steelers to lose one?
After seeing Jaguars play the Packers, it is very possible, but I think Mike Tomlin, like we saw last week, has got to this team. I'm like, we're not going to overlook every single team. They overlook the Cowboys coming into this week. They're not overlooking Jacksonville. I think Mike Tomlin has got them back on track, saying, "Hey, whoever's in front of us, we're focusing on them," and I think they will be back focused again like they were last week.
I think the Steelers send a message.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get back on to show who they really are. What about Tennessee going into Baltimore? What do you got?
I can't. I want to throw my hands and say this is a Ravens. They're going to dominate, but they still have those turmoils, and until we can see more. But I trust the Ravens more than this Tennessee defense that's banged up and has not looked good. So I'm taking.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens too. I think Lamar Jackson's going to come out with a fire. I think he's going to end up bringing out a little bit more than he brought against New England. They had that terrible weather. I think the weather's going to be wonderful today. You get him out there running around, able to throw it like he does. If once again, just like we talked about with the Saints-Falcons game, if the Ravens can run the ball and run it efficiently and be able to hold onto the clock and turn this into a game where Ryan Tannehill has to sit back there in the pocket to keep up, then they win. As long as you don't put the ball in Derrick Henry's hands more than 20 times. Mm-hmm. Dolphins in Denver. Who do you have?
I was going to go with the Dolphins, and I was trusting, but you convinced me when we were talking about earlier. And the Denver has played some good games. I'm taking upset, and I'm taking Denver over Miami.
Okay. I've been kind of feeling the same thing, but at the same time, if I don't even know who your starting quarterback is, I got issues with you.
Man, it can be to their favor now too. So
it can be, and so I'm gonna take the Dolphins. I'm gonna trust Tua and what that Miami team has been doing, and it's not even necessarily the Dolphins' offense. I'm gonna trust the Dolphins' defense to be able to continue playing well and doing what they're doing. I'm taking the Dolphins over the Broncos, but I think it's going to be another really good game. And I think we're going to get a chance to see how Tua is able to handle it in late situation. So I think that'll be really good there. Let's go ahead and go into, like I said, my favorite matchup of the week, the Green Bay Packers going against the Indianapolis Colts. You have the number one defense going against a top 5 offense and probably the number one quarterback in the over the last decade in Aaron Rodgers. Who do you have?
I love this Colts defense. I think they're playing fantastic. But you know what else I love more? Aaron Rodgers with all of his weapons back. So I got the Packers.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with the Packers too. That Colts defense has been absolutely phenomenal. But the way that this Colts team has been playing, it's been a matter of managing games, running the ball, keeping short passes. I know Phillip Rivers has it in him. He's done it for too long at too high of a level to not be able to make that last little second surge if need be. But if you got the game on the line and you got to be able to get some points, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers any day of the week against any defense ever to play. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over the 85 Bears with all of his weapons any day of the week. I'm choosing the Green Bay Packers. Let's go to the Sunday night game tonight. You have Kansas City Chiefs in the rematch game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Matt, do the Raiders upset the Chiefs again?
They do. They do have a chance, but not tonight. I got the Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs too. I think that Patrick Mahomes comes out with a fire, and this defense, who was embarrassed by the Raiders running the ball all over them in their own house. I got the Kansas City Chiefs in a dominant fashion. 42-24. Put it down. Tomorrow night, Los Angeles Rams going against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. What do you say?
I think this is my hardest pick. It's hard to pick against Tom Brady. It's very hard just because he'll prove you wrong. But I think the Rams defense, front seven, will be able to get enough pressure, make Tom uncomfortable. And we've seen this year what happened if you get Tom uncomfortable. They've struggled. So I'm taking the Rams just because of their history this year.
I want to take the Rams. I really do. Aaron Ronald is my favorite defensive player in the league right now. just seeing what that guy does and his work ethic and how he's going to be able to go, I think he's probably still going to end up hitting Tom Brady 6 times this game. I think it's going to really struggle against them. But, I'm going to take Tampa Bay's defense over the Rams offense. I think that's going to be the difference. I don't think that Los Angeles is going to be able to move the ball the way they need to be able to keep up with a very explosive Bucs offense who ran the ball really well last week. And if they're able to run the ball, where they struggled is when they ran the ball, had one rushing yard? One rushing yard against the Saints?
Only 5 attempts, too.
That's not going to happen again. Mm-mm. The Bucs learned their lesson. They're going to run the ball. They're going to end up trying to control the clock. And if they do that, I'm going to take Tampa's defense versus Los Angeles offense. I think that's just a matchup that can't go overlooked. With that, we have concluded this episode. I believe it's our 4th episode here. We've now done one every single week of November. Moving forward, I appreciate everybody joining in. Don't forget, we'll be back next week, and that we'll actually I think we're going to be together next week. So, we'll probably actually be able to do a single location there and see what ends up happening there on a little Thanksgiving special. Once again, thank you for tuning in. You can catch us on Twitch at BuckHeels. You can catch us at twitch.com/Folsey. You can catch us on the Double B Sports Talk on Facebook and Facebook Live. You can catch us on Double B Sports Talk on YouTube. Once again, thank you all for joining in. Until next week, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you guys later. Folsey out.
Bye.